Yay, so we have a quorum. I see Joe is connecting. Oh, I'd wave, for some reason, I cannot get my video on, but you can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know why it is. When I joined Zoom lately, I have not been able to get my video going. So I look like the icon for Woodstock. But it's what we got at the moment. So okay. And we have Michael Henry joining. I don't see other people joining just yet. So what I do have to share, I'll wait till Michael Henry gets on. We have Jude, we have Joe, we have Michael, who's still connecting to audio. And again, I don't have any idea why if I turn my video on, I get nothing. I'll just do that. Oh, there's Michael's on. Yeah, so you see, if I turn my video on, I get nothing. I don't have any idea. Anyway, and we should be recording. That's another odd thing.
I did get a message saying it was being recorded.
Oh, okay. I usually see a red dot someplace and I don't see the red dot, so that's okay. All right. So
I see a red dot flashing.
okay, yay. So alrighty, because it should be automatic. So alrighty. So anyway, just since Michael's on and he wasn't there for the communications we were having earlier. So as we know, the tree law, not the tree law, sorry, the fence law. I also have a tree law in my inbox, which is not zoning chapter. Anyway, the fence law, we're hoping at the next town board meeting, which I think is April 8th, to have a quorum, send it to the Woodstock Planning Board and the Ulster County Planning Board. So that's the plan for the fence law, because we resolved Anula's concerns. And so theoretically, so Joe, I did resend that out. Jude and I had worked on the updates that were going to resolve Anula's concerns. And then I realized that I hadn't sent that update to everybody. So I did send that to Joe and also to Connor. So if you do have any concerns with it, let me know. But I know Jude and I felt pretty comfortable with it. So anyway, the fence law is moving along. The scenic overlay law, for some reason, the planning board seems to have a desire to review. I know, I see Jude shaking her head. They seem to have a desire to review the whole thing. And that's there. If they choose to do that, they can. So I hope that we'll see what they come back with. Hopefully they come back with things that we agree with, in which case it'll be very quick and easy for us to incorporate them. So that's the scenic overlay law. And let me just make a note here. Fences. Okay, that's an update on the fences law and the scenic overlay law. The other thing is on the housing law. In case, and there was a housing oversight task force of which I was a member. The housing law, the huge huge proposal for the housing law. There's chapter 202, which is not zoning, but chapter 202 is the subdivision law. Chapter 260 is the zoning law. Chapter 202 is about 90 pages. Chapter 260 is about 300 pages. And there were updates. The Housing Oversight Task Force recommended updates sprinkled throughout. So it's not 90 pages of updates in scenic overlay, and it's not 300 pages of updates in the zoning law, but there is probably 30 pages of concentrated updates in the zoning law and changes kind of sprinkled throughout the subdivision. So what we had previously is we had public hearing. We had a public hearing. I forget it was 1 or 2 sessions, but a lot of people came to the public hearing and just complained about, well, this is terrible, ruin the character of Woodstock. And if you drive around Woodstock, you see signs that say, don't gut our zoning. So there was kind of a big pushback. Well, not kind of, there was a big pushback on the proposed law. So what the town board is looking to do with the law is, instead of having, we want to resume conversation on it. And we're not looking to break apart pieces of the law, because it's just too much to break it apart and then try to put it back together again. What we want to do is we want to without breaking it apart, we want to discuss different sections. So the plan is for the town board to discuss chapter 202 in the second meeting in April. So the idea is that for the next 4 months, in the second town board meeting of the month, that the town board will entertain public hearing, entertain comments, focus on the area of that day. So the idea is to break the updates into 4 sections. So in April, we'll talk about chapter 202 updates. In May, so we still need to figure out for 260, break it into 3 pieces, perhaps 4 pieces. And what are the pieces, so that people are talking about the pieces. So for example, a conservation subdivision is in chapter 202. So we'll hear what the pieces are in the piece we're talking about today. And people should come and be specific about what don't they like and why don't they like it, or what do they like and why do they like it. So the public hearing will be on pieces of it rather than the entire law, because people kind of broad brush the entire law. It's terrible. Well, okay, but let's look at the pieces, because it may be there's some pieces we want to keep and there may be some pieces we want to take out. So by talking about each in 4 conversations, which each one focused on a smaller area, we're hoping to really get some valuable insights into, are there pieces that we should keep? Are there pieces we shouldn't keep? What should we do to, because I believe that some parts of it are palatable and helpful. And I know a lot of townspeople think some pieces of it are not palatable and not helpful. And if we talk about it in pieces, I think we'll have a more secure feeling of where we are. So even though that law did not come from the zoning revision committee, this team is very interested in what goes on with all zoning law. And that's clearly a big impact. So I want to make sure people know. So if you're interested, you can come to the public hearing. The first one will be the second. Yeah, I see your hand. This will be the second meeting in April. And I'm just going to pull up my calendar. And I think that's the 22nd. I think that usually the second meeting is the 3rd Tuesday, but I think in April, it'll probably be the 4th. So anyway, go ahead, Jude.
It's really hard not to be able to see you.
I I don't know how, yeah, I don't know how to solve the problem. If anybody on the call is technical, maybe you can let me know how to solve the problem. Because all of a sudden, and I apologize. I
I
look,
have a conversation with this, talking head, but there's no person.
I look like a circle, yeah.
You and I had discussed maybe the ZRC taking a look at the subdivision regs, because we both agreed that there probably was a lot in there that was good and a few things that may need some updating. So I'm going to advocate for the ZRC to be part of this process. I think that we should be part of the discussion and not just show up at a public hearing. I would like us to be able to look at those sections too. And I do agree with you, because, I know at some of those public hearings, I know I stood up and spoke very specifically, but I had 2 minutes. There's not a lot you can
Yeah, there you go. It'll be easier. Well, so here's what.
But I had to talk really fast, and I know, and I even, gave documents, but I would like to see the ZRC have a seat at the table on this. I like us to be able to participate, and I hope that we can. And I know, like I said, you and I had discussed pretty early on, taking a look at the subdivision regs, which I think, is not as formidable as looking at that whole zoning package.
Sure.
But anyway, I would like for us to be able to do that.
Well, so here's my prediction. But because it was the Housing Oversight Task Force that had members of the ZRC at the time, Jeff Collins was a member of the ZRC, and he was a member of the Housing Oversight Task Force. It had a planning board member. It had Judy Kerman. It had Deborah DeWan and Kirk Ritchie, who were both on the housing committee at the time. It had it had Michael Castiglione, but he for reasons he had, was not always at the meetings, but he was sometimes at the meetings. And I feel like I missed, I think Richard Hepner was part of that group also, because that was, he kind of successfully withdrew from things in the town, but he was involved there, and always he's been always a value add. But anyway, so I don't foresee the town board, or the supervisor for that matter, saying, hey, this is going to be a ZRC item now. However, I am very happy to spend our next meeting, Kyle Lord Farmer is coming. So that'll be the priority at our next meeting. I'm very happy to spend time after that talking about what we think about the, because I'm happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you or have a conversation with the whole ZRC and get your feedback in that, I'll say elongated way, because I'm giving you more than 2 minutes, right? You say, you go to this thing, you get 2 minutes. We could have an in-depth discussion so that I would have a better understanding of where members of the ZRC are coming from. So I don't anticipate that you would be treated differently from others when you go to the public hearing at the town. However, by us having an in-depth conversation, I will be able to talk more broadly and completely about, because you will influence my thoughts. Because we always have constructive conversations, and I learn a lot by having conversations. So I predict that that if we can have some conversations in our ZRC meetings, I will be better educated about different aspects. So that's probably more of how it will work out, that we can talk in ZRC meetings about it, and then I will be able to again have a broader perspective of these things. But I can't promise that I don't envision it being handed to the ZRC, and I don't, so we'll figure out how to work. We'll figure out how to, if possible, formalize the ZRC input to it. So we'll roll it along. So we should have that be a topic at our next meeting. So after Kyle Lord Farmer finishes whatever he's going to share with us, then we'll go over to that.
Okay.
So, okay.
My understanding also is that the HOTF, and I'm not sure exactly who it was from, did send, after the public hearings, did send some suggested revisions in a letter to the town board.
Right, now I'll have to dig up, and unfortunately, that was like, what, a year and a half ago?
A long time ago.
It was a long time ago. But the public hearing had so much passion, we'll call it. I don't know what the best word is, but there people spoke very passionately and negatively, and it seemed a good idea to take a step back and figure out the best way to proceed. And so we are hopeful that this way of focusing on different pieces will give us some valuable feedback and useful feedback and things that we can actually do something with. Because it would, I personally would like to see a law that improves our ability for housing, a law passed, but we need to really understand that law we have in front of us, and it can be changed, and let's really see what ought to change.
Right. I think it's a good idea to split it up. I mean, there were a lot of people who did, I mean, I don't want to get into, but there were a lot of people who spoke about specific things, but there were also people who were just there to cheerlead, which didn't really offer anything to the conversation. So I think it's a good idea to divide it up into different sections so people can address their concerns with very specific parts. I did attend a number of, there were only a couple that were public HOTF meetings, and I did give them input on specific things, and we did discuss things. So I do think it's a good idea to do it this way. I think it's going to be hard to get people's interest, especially in the spring, but we'll see how it goes. You know how it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a really good point. But the other thing too is we have, as you know, the majority of the board will be new starting January because Supervisor McKenna is not running. You never know who's really running until I hear a little bit about the political process. Is petitions get gathered in the month of March, they get submitted the first few days in April. So March 31st through April 3rd, which is a 4-day period, all petitions get submitted. We'll really know for sure who's throwing their hat in the ring on April 4th or on April 5th, we'll say, because on that Friday, we'll know who all actually threw their hat in the ring. But
well, as a Democrat or a Republican, but somebody could still get on the ballot for November, right? If they were an independent or something.
Well, that's true. And not to digress too much into the political process, however, the democratic process for local elections is petitioning. The Republican process for local elections is, my understanding, is still caucus because the numbers are smaller. And if you look at towns throughout Ulster County, many towns still, on the Democrats, do a caucus. But Woodstock decided we just had too many Democrats and a caucus was a nightmare because, you go in person, you get a million speeches, everybody goes and votes, somebody's got to go in a back room and count the votes, and then somebody protests the votes, and then you go into the next position, and we would have we got three candidates.
In there.
Yeah, we have three candidates for supervisor. So what they would do is everybody votes for supervisor, and then you drop out the lowest vote, and everybody votes again for supervisor, and it takes forever to vote, and it takes forever to count, and one went till 2 a.m. So that was the end of the Democrats doing the caucus. They went to petitioning. So
They were wild.
they were wild. They were wild. And so, in any event, but the other parties are smaller and they can do it differently. They can do a caucus, but we do petitioning. So for us, we're going to know April 5th who's really running.
Right.
And I don't, so is, Bennett and Maria Elena, they haven't told me they're running, but we'll find out April 5th if petitions turned up for anybody. So anyway, but the belief is that we really ought to wrap up whatever we're going to do with this law, listen to the people, make whatever changes make sense based on what we've heard from the people, and wrap up this law to try to make things better than they are today, and we'll see what happens. So that's the goal. So anyway, so all right. So the other thing that I had that was really and as I say, Kai Lord Farmer is coming to our next meeting. And I think that is the 14th, right? That is February. I'm sorry, April. We're into April already. April 14th. Let me just pull my calendar up so I can look properly. Yes, April 14th, Kai Lord Farmer. So make sure, Jude and Joe, make sure you can come because I'm sure he's not going to come twice. So anyway, so that's good. So the other thing, if you want to see it, of the 500 and some responses, I've managed to get through about 100 of them, and I've been building my spreadsheet that shows what the numbers are for what kinds of things people said. It's kind of it's a long list at the moment, but some things definitely have gotten higher votes. So if you want to see what I've got so far, I'm not going to send it out because it's not done, but if you want me to share what I've got so far, I'm happy to share that. I see a nodding of the head, or maybe not.
Thinking maybe we should wait until you're kind of closer to at least closer to completion. Because
okay. Okay.
Well, that's only 20% of them. So
yeah.
And I know, boy, Laura, I know what a massive job this is. So thank you for doing it. And I'm not impatient to find out what it is. I am glad that Kai is coming, though. I think he can give us some insight, and we certainly have questions for him. So that'll be good. But I don't know that it's going to help us at this point to see.
So the ones that I did so far, just to let you know, is and let me see if I can find. Well, so the ones that I did so far were the people that are Woodstock residents. They do not have an STR, and then I'm looking at those that. Then I also was looking at who thinks non-owner occupied are good for Woodstock and who disagrees with that statement. So I've gotten through everybody who, for the people who are Woodstock residents and they do not have an STR, I've gotten through their answers of what they think about whether non-owner occupied are good for Woodstock. I mean, that's the order I'm looking at them, but I'm looking at all the comments because we had 4 comments fields. So I first looked at everybody who agree that non-owner occupied are good for Woodstock. I looked at, for that set of people, I've already looked at the 4 comments and I've got them in a list and who's, come out with the most number of hits. And then I've also looked at the ones that are neutral. So what I didn't look at yet was the people who are Woodstockers and don't have an STR, the disagree, which is, I think, over 100 answers. And I'll just let you know, it goes from 100 to, it's going to be a while till I get to the end here. No, I'm still looking for the end of the list. Yeah, goes from 100 to 330. So I've done 100, and the next group I do is going to have 230 in it. So that'll be the next group. And then I'll go on to the other categories of, oh, you know, it's interesting. Yeah, right. And then I'll go into the other categories of Woodstockers who do have an STR. And then I'll go into the, you know, not a Woodstock resident, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I've gotten 100 of the 500 and it's 20%, but it's still is of interest in telling, I think. So, okay, so we've actually covered all the topics that people are choosing to cover. So, you know, status on the different laws, status on where I am with my little assessment. And the other thing too is it'll definitely be cleaner when I do it, because right now the list is getting kind of long because I have different categories of things, but I'll be making more sense out of it. As I see the whole list, I'll be able to group things together better and make some better sense out of it. So it'll be better as I go along.
Again, thank you for doing it.
Yeah, it's a lot of words. It's a lot of words to
A lot
absorb.
to go through, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll ask Michael, since Michael's a guest. Michael, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. Nothing particular except we have gotten at least one, maybe two emails from some of our members who are very upset when they see houses being listed for sale in Woodstock along with their STR permits. Well, and one woman in particular was very upset because she has now come to the conclusion that she needs to sell her Woodstock home, even though she's been here for many years, because she's been waiting on an STR permit, but there's no applications, you know.
I thought the law was it was not transferable, but I should look
I
up.
thought that is what the law is, but
Okay,
maybe it's happening.
so well, the thing about it is, I think the answer, the building permit gave out those permits, so I guess the question is, what is the building permit doing to make sure when a property sells that the permit does not go with it?
Well-
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for a fact that when the property is being, you know, I haven't tracked down, we haven't recently, you know, got foiled the list of permits in the last couple of years. The law says that a permit is, upon sale, a permit is transferable, but you have to apply for the permit, the new owner. And of course, right now, you know, applications aren't being accepted, and certainly one would hope there is, you know, depending what the outcome is of all the revisions, but at least for right now, I hope there's at least some sort of informal waiting list for people who've been waiting for years.
Right,
I'm pretty sure the spirit of the law as written even, and even the letter of the law as written, is that that shouldn't be happening.
right, yeah, I
And it's,
believe.
you know, it's certainly upsetting to people who are about to sell their homes to see people transfer.
Well, right, when my understanding is it's not legal to do so, so I will have to I'll have to call Butch
All right,
tomorrow.
So,
great.
so basically, I think we talked about this last time and we talked about how to maybe undo this. But when the planning board first started giving out SUPs,
Mhm.
they did not restrict them to current owner. That SUP could be transferred to another.
Oh, so
And then eventually they kind of went, oh, wait a minute, we do not. And then they put in something in the SUP that said it could not be transferred upon sale. So there may be a few out there that can do it. I don't know who's listing and what it is, but I do know, you know, people do like to put that in their listings, but some of them may
Right.
be legitimate. And this is something, Laura, that I brought up last time, that, you know, it's probably something that we should find out. And I didn't look into it, but I'll make a note to look into it, how many of those there may be and what needs to be done to revoke that. And I know something can be done. I just don't know how complicated it is. So anyway, Michael, I
I'm a
don't know
little
that it's
confused
not very
because
helpful to you, but there are some people who right now have that right.
they have that right in their SUP,
Mhm.
but the STR law that's currently on the books doesn't allow the STR permit to be issued to the new owner unless they apply.
That's right. Okay. So you're saying.
So
so we ought to get between the planning board and
it really
Butch,
shouldn't be.
yeah, between the planning board and Butch, we ought to make sure we're all clear about, as Jude said, maybe some slip through, and can they actually slip through based on the current law? But if somebody's been issued an SUP that says, well, it doesn't say it can't transfer, I guess, the new ones say it can't transfer, and the old ones just didn't say anything about whether it could transfer.
Anything in SUP usually runs with the land. I mean, it doesn't have to, but I guess if it doesn't say it doesn't, then it does.
Okay,
But like even, I who have an STR permit, I still have to renew it every year.
Right.
And
Michael, I
there's
don't
an
have the
exception.
answer for you of whether or not
Yeah.
the new.
Yeah, no,
owners
I
would- You have
I
to go for
appreciate,
permit and then,
just.
yeah, no, I think you're right. It's something that we should probably look into and, yeah. We should
Yeah, and
definitely.
and it also
Gotta
just
sort it
goes
out.
back to as the law is being revised. Again, I think there's some great ideas floating around about not issuing an STR within 3 years or 5 years of purchase or transfer. There's again, it just comes back to things we've talked about a lot. Is there are ways to discourage speculators and investors and people who are primarily doing this as a business. There's
right.
ways to discourage
We lost you.
Yeah, Michael, you
from
should make,
doing it
Michael,
while
why don't you go off video, because you're breaking up a little bit, and I think if you go off video, you may have enough juice to be
Oh.
heard.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that
Yeah,
I
that's
may be
okay.
on the
Go
wrong
ahead
one.
again.
Yeah, no, I'm on my. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said this brings us back to some things we've discussed, a few times as the law is being revised, the STR law. These ideas about not allowing an STR permit to be issued within 3 years or 5 years of a new person purchasing a home. There are ways to discourage people who are primarily doing it as an investment or a business from from skewing housing values that way, while still making, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater of people who are part-time residents and
Right, yeah.
trying to keep
Okay,
things
so
going.
I'll have to call Butch and also Melissa, I guess.
All right.
And Melissa.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks for bringing that up. And Jude, thanks for the reminder of some of those other pieces of nuances of that. So cool. Okay, anything else you want to talk about today? Okay, we're good. Joe, thank you for joining us. Anything that you want to say? Bye. He wants to wave. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
Can we get a Tesla dealership in town so we can protest it conveniently?
I mean, can you do what, Michael?
Can we get a Tesla dealership in town so we can protest it conveniently?
Oh my God, yeah. Well, God, don't get me started.
All right, I won't.
Anyway,
Have
so
a
I
good
guess
night,
so I think we're all in favor of ending the meeting, adjourning the meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Have a
Thanks.
good night.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.